over to Karen.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Karen Daniel. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and that means for me, it's been 32 years since I used any mind-altering drugs, kind of changed my mood. And of those 32 years, I've made such a difference in my life. But as a result of my recovery, I've been a better employee, I've been a better mother, and really a friend and a good listener. And I kind of owe it all to the difference that I made in my life when I decided to do something different. But I want to welcome you to Women in Recovery. We've got a panel of 4 women, and just so happens that I know them, and I asked them if they would write a little blurb. Because if you noticed when you registered, I had a blurb up, and I'm just going to read what I said about them. I said, the peers that you see on this platform are passionate about peer work that they're doing in Georgia. Many of them are doing work that is not just limited to the state of Georgia, but are sharing the benefits of peer work throughout the United States. Several have received both national and state recognition regarding their work in the communities. They are a group of peers that have a passion for carrying a message of hope, and not just to those they support, but also to families and allies. Several of them call themselves hope dealers. Join me in what will be a truly exhilarating experience as the panelists share their lived experience with us. So I'm going to start out by, I asked our panelists to kind of give me 2 sentences about them. And I don't know in which order that you want it. Jill, does it make a difference? Okay, well then I'm going to start out with Jen. And Jen says, she is a person in long-term recovery. She's not used any drugs or alcohol since 2013. She became a CPS AD in 2018. By the way, CPS means Certified Peer Specialist, and AD is addictive disease. And she's since been certified in medication-assisted treatment, whole health action management, telephone and emergency department peer support services, the science of addiction and recovery, and trauma-informed care. Jen has a passion for helping the community and for helping others who are seeking recovery. Her goal is to meet people where they are and walk alongside them on their pathways to wellness. So Jen's going to get started. She's going to give us a little something about her pathway and her recovery. Thanks, Jen. I can't hear you, Jen.
I hear you.
That should be it. Are you? Why don't we come back to you, Jen? We'll come back to Jen and we'll go to, let me see who's next on the list. Terusa. So this says, Terusa Stewart, a woman in recovery, on February 13th, 2021, she'll have 19 years in an uninterrupted recovery. She's honored to have this opportunity. And something else I know about Terusa is that we were in the same cohort. We're both CARES 9. And she had a passion when I met her. She was so excited, and she spent the whole time asking questions, and really she kind of took this thing by the horns and just ran with it. So I'm excited, and you'll be excited to hear a little bit about Terusa's experience.
All right, so can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
All right, and the time is ticking. I am so excited. I'm honored to be here. Like Karen said, my name is Terusa, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is in February the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, I would say is the day I decided to love me. Almost 19 years ago, before I had a drink or a drug or did anything outrageous accidentally. I say today I do it purposely, right, and intentionally. So I speak out about my recovery, and my recovery has afforded me so much, but most of all, it's afforded me an opportunity to partake in motherhood and sisterhood, to be an aunt, to be a daughter during the time before my mom passed away. I was 3 years in recovery before she passed away. I was in active addiction for 14 years. There's a lot of my story. But it was one part that I think is relevant. I chose to talk about now is that, it's the little girl. And I talk about the little girl, and the little girl I mean is me, because even still today, with almost 19 years in recovery, she still could rear her head up in times that is not so appropriate, in times that are not so appropriate. But they told me recovery is ongoing. The only people that graduate from recovery is in the obituary section. So since I'm still among the living, I am going to continue to learn and to grow. I grew up, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. I was the baby for a long time. We have an adopted sister who's the youngest, and she came along later on. And so I was a baby for a long time in our family. And it was a lot of things that went along in the household. But I grew up a really, 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 really lonely girl. And I say it's loneliness and leadership, but that's just looking back now. But as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old little girl, you don't realize that you're being set aside. And today I'm so fortunate, because what my recovery has given me was the opportunity not to brag on myself, but to be myself. It was a time I could say nothing good about me. There was a time I didn't think there was anything good about me. I didn't think I looked good. I didn't think I felt good. I didn't think I was good. So, a lot of times, I just like that recovery gives me my unique experience that is deeply personal. So that means when I begin to toot my own horn, just know who sit before you is a person who couldn't even open her mouth. Right? For some of us, we may need to, downsize the story, but for some of us, we need to upgrade it. Because I lived in the shadows for so long of burying my strengths and my talents, because it was better to be cool than it was to be smart. And so because of that, I grew up a little lonely in my household, just a little girl who could comprehend, I believe, beyond her age. And so I was one of them children where you could, you'll try to spell a word by, but I always knew what you were talking about. Every argument that went on in a household, every discrepancy, I understood what it was about. It was either about money or it was about something else, but just being able to have that level of comprehension as a child, it kind of robbed me of just being able to go outside and play. But lo and behold, recovery has given me great things. I speak about that, or I chose that, or rather the God that I serve helped me choose what I need to speak about, because I don't know who's listening. But, it came a point in my life where I couldn't remember 2 years of it. It was 2 years of my life that I just absolutely could not remember. I charged it off as something really horrific must have happened. It was during my teenage years. And I thought that, again, it was just some travesty. And, all the way from, so this is about the beginning of high school. So you're talking about 14, 15 years old. I withdrew from the world. The world became really painful for me, right? So I stopped going outside. I stayed in the house. That I do remember. I do remember finishing school, but I didn't remember the day in, the day out activities. It wasn't until fast forward into the year 2013 where I was taking a trauma training, 2-day trauma training for women with this doctor. And I went outside, and it's like I heard a voice of, and I'm gonna say the voice of recovery. I'm gonna say the voice of recovery. I heard the voice of recovery say to me, "You don't remember, Teresa? You don't remember your cap and gown? You don't remember, skipping a grade? You don't remember going all the way to Clara Barton High School to be a nurse? You don't remember those things?" See, what behooved me was the things that I suppressed was my strength. The things that I suppressed was the gifts and talents God had gave me. And that's the thing that drove me to use drugs. I wanted to be anything else but me. And I could remember it all coming back like a flood, my memory that time. And I was like, wow, and it was so empowering. It was very empowering. And I was like, that was me. I made them choices. I did something right. I made some good decisions. And so I got really, really amped on this new information about, feeling empowered. And I decided to go back to school. You know what? School rejected me for whatever reason. And it's so ironic. So I really deflated really quick. But what I realized, it wasn't school that I was supposed to go to, because I was introduced to a certification called the CARES program, right? Certified Addiction Recovery Empowerment Specialist. April 2013, I got in and I went up there, and it changed my thinking. It changed my life. And I got to lay my eyes on an individual that when I saw her, it gave me permission to be that same leader, right? And so, and that was one of my sheroes, Neil Campbell. And so from that day to this day, you know, recovery has been outstanding. I mean, even to try to even articulate some of the things that it has done for me, you know, probably some people won't believe it. You know, if I had time to tell my true story and my testimony, you know, recovery cleans you up so good, people probably won't even believe it. That's why we have to live it out loud. That's why every chance I get, you know, I have to be able to take a piece of my story and share it with somebody. You know, today this little girl could talk about herself. I can look in the mirror and I can love what I see looking back at me. You know, I can operate out of my gifts and my talents, and just be, right? Just be Terusa. And that's the best thing my recovery has given me. It gave me permission to be what God has called me to be. And that has just been an awesome thing. You know, I don't want to dress up my story. You know, I did it. I used to say, and I'm not ashamed to say, I could tell you what I didn't do in active addiction better than I could tell you what I did do, because I was out there for so long. I did everything that came with a crack cocaine addict. You know, I was completely surrendered to the disease of addiction. You know, it was horrible. It wasn't pretty, but when I got into recovery, 12-step program, I went through a 12-step program, and I did the 12 steps in that program, and it just positioned me to get back everything in my life that the disease of addiction has taken from me and has taken from my family, and then also positioned me to be able to give that back to my community, where I'm at, to help other people do the same thing. I love seeing when people get it, like when they get recovery. It is the most beautiful thing. You know, I don't know how much time I have left, Karen. I know we didn't have much time, but I thank you. I am honored to be a whole woman today. Like, I'm a whole woman. And I had to fight for that. Didn't come easy, but recovery was worth it. And if you think, and so my recovery, I cherish today, and I don't give it away, right? So that's why we help empower others. I don't try to fix people today. I don't give them my recovery. I need it. I want it. It's for me. You know, it fits me perfectly. You know, I put the work in to make it design. It's my garment. It's my armor. You know, but I like to help other people to get that. And so I am just so fortunate to be able to tell y'all a little bit about me and my recovery process. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Terusa. I appreciate it. I had not heard that part. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And you know what, before I go any further, I need to thank actually the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse for doing this. It seems like everywhere I go and when I turn, I hear something about the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. I've left there, but I haven't left there, you know, so I'm still around, y'all. But I want to thank also Jill and Jamie. They're our tech assistants, so they're going to be helping with you and giving you some, I guess, some direction after the women share their story. And also thank Brian too, I think, and Jeff and the whole GCSA staff. So yeah. So we're ready to hear from you, Jen?
Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Great.
I don't know what I had going on. Yeah. So first of all, this is like an incredible honor to me because all the women on this panel are people that I look up to, people that I call when I need, you know, guidance. And so I think it's amazing, and it's a great honor to be just in the presence of all of you women. And so a little bit, I guess, about my story. I didn't know I was going to be so emotional, but this is awesome. So, so I am a person in long-term recovery. It's been over 7 years since I used any drugs or alcohol, and my recovery has given me the ability to do all kinds of things that I never even thought I had the potential to do. You know, I'm a wonderful mom to my kid today. I get along with my ex-husband, even though I wrecked our life when we were together. You know, I've got this beautiful full life that I'm able to live. You know, I'm able to take care of myself and my family and be a good daughter and a friend and a sponsor and a sponsee. And it all started because I was at this place in my life where I did not know how to keep doing what I was doing. And I was so afraid to change, but I was more afraid to stay the same. And I think a lot of people have said that same thing, but I'm so proud of myself that I had the courage to do something different. And I just remember Teresa made me think about, you know, I was in treatment and we did the sit in a circle thing, and and I didn't know it, but the people that were in there that were teaching me about recovery, they were cares, you know, and I didn't know what a cares was, but that's what it was. I was getting cares. And we were talking about, you know, what our resentments were and what were the things that we had a resentment about. And the only thing I could come up with was I resent myself for not living up to my potential. And today, if you had asked me what my potential was, I would never have been able to tell you because the thing I was most upset with myself about was not finishing college. And in 3 months, I'm going to graduate from college. Now, it took me 7 years, but, you know, recovery has afforded me that. And it's given me the ability to look at, you know, what my goals are and what I think I want my life to look like. And also it's given me the ability to discern between, you know, what I think I might want and what my higher powers plan for me is, and to go with what I feel like that plan is, even if it's not what I thought I wanted to begin with. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people on here that can attest to the fact that I didn't see myself being the director of an RCO. You know, 3 years ago when I became a CARES, I was I was going to work in the NICU and I was going to help mamas and their babies, and I was going to just be this person that worked for the Georgia Council, and I love that job and it was amazing, but it seems like everything got put into my path to get me to where I am now instead. And you know, it's kind of come full circle because now the RCO I work for has a relationship with DFACS, and we just had a meeting about how we can help moms and their babies. So, you know, it's amazing to me, but I never could tell you the things that I think I can achieve because I don't ever give myself enough credit for them. And I always say that I hate public speaking, but really I love public speaking. I love attention, and I want to downplay that because, you know, I don't want to be this person in your face, because I think if I'm being awesome, then I'm not good enough to be awesome. But that's taken a lot of work. And, you know, my pathway to recovery also was a 12-step program. You know, it started out with someone caresing me. That's a verb. And, you know, then I found my place and I found my people, and there's a lot of strong women in there that I really look up to. Some of them are on this call right now, which is amazing. And, you know, I got to work on myself, and I got to get to know who Jen is. And I got to decide what parts of Jen I liked and what parts I didn't like. And, you know, I got to work on those things too. And so I'm no longer that bratty girl that was, you know, fighting to stay on drugs. And now I'm that girl that helps other people, and I can live my life with grace, and I can show that same grace to others. And so it's just amazing to me. I'm just in awe of this, and I really appreciate you guys asking me to do this. Sometimes I can't believe I'm me. But yeah, so I think that's about all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. You know, before we go any further, I think about all the women that have helped me along the way. And, You know, when I remember meeting Neil, I'd heard her at one of our RC, in fact, I think the original RCO in Georgia. And I thought, oh my God, this lady's really, God, but think of all the women that she has helped and supported. You know, I know owe so much to her because she probably saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. And you can only get the chance to do that probably when you go through with probably the CARES Academy and you get a chance to really, that whole week was just, I was just immersed in, you know, the thought that I could do something for my community. Yeah. All right, let's hear from, I think we'll hear, let me see who's next. Shonda, Divas Who Win.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Georgia Council on Substance Abuse for this opportunity and for the beautiful panel of women, the thumbnails I just see up top, whether it's a panelist or a woman who's plugged in here today. So I'm Shonda Santana. And when I thought about what to say, I know the questions were around what our pathways are and barriers maybe we faced as a mother. So I won't talk a whole lot about Divas Who Win Freedom Center. It's an RCO here in Athens that I get the privilege of being executive director and founder of. But when I think about, so our mission at Divas is supporting women overcoming addiction, prostitution, and sex trafficking. So when I think about a pathway, what was my pathway that I consider to freedom? For me, it was faith. And so for me, my faith journey really began 24 years ago. I was involved in the sex trade for 10 years. And no matter how hard I tried, I'm gonna cry, so y'all just, it was 24 years ago, but it was yesterday. I could not get out, you know, I could not, my time involved in sex work was really not about substance use disorder back then, although I did actively use drugs on a regular basis. But it was that lifestyle, it was that game, it was really my childhood trauma that had prepared me to drop out of high school and enter this world that I didn't know anything about. And I learned really quick. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life to be able to say that that was 24 years ago, a half of a lifetime. I'm 50, I'll be 50 this year. So, you know, it was a half of a lifetime ago. And the way in which I came out of that part of my recovery journey, how I began recovery there, was through my pathway of faith and my belief in Jesus Christ. So when I think about women, there were women, one woman in particular that loved the ratchet style of me, you know, loved me and all my shenanigans and all the chaos and all the things that were happening 24 years ago. But she just kept telling me that there was a better way, that there was a greater love out there, and that I didn't have to keep chasing shadows, you know? So that was the beginning of my recovery journey, was engaging in the practice of faith. But it wasn't over there. So then 14 years and a couple of months ago, I became liberated and free from drugs and alcohol. And so that happened for me with, I would say, a rekindling of my faith. When I finally got out of sex work, because of my faith, it was like a supernatural thing. Like, it was a done deal. No matter how many times I thought I was going to have to sleep in the van and live there with my children, or just however hard the times became, I never, ever went back. Had a thought to go back. It was supernatural. But when the work of recovery from substances began for me 14 years ago, I needed some added help. You know, I had to go away somewhere. I went to a 6-month intense treatment program. And the other question talks about what were the barriers to me as a mother. So, you know, my motivation to find recovery, as well as what took me so long to get into recovery, the answer was the same. I had 6 children. I have 6 children. So my baby was 4 when I went into recovery. So I was in a very toxic marriage. I didn't have a choice as to where these children were going to be. I preferred my ex-husband to have my children over de facto custody. And so that was a whole lot of faith and desperation that got me into an intense treatment program. Barriers for me, I didn't have insurance. I barely had a network. We split my children up because my ex-husband couldn't work full time and take care of the kids. So one went this way, one went that way, and then he was able to hold on to the others. And ironically, another somewhat of a barrier for me when I think about my recovery journey was actually my faith to a certain degree, for the simple fact that there were not women. I was a church going, pill popping somebody, you understand? And there weren't women in the church saying that they struggled or they'd been, liberated in some way. So there I sat in the prayer line I always had a passion for women even in my old lifestyle. I was going to show you how we going to do this and how you make the most money, how to stay safe. I've always had that in me. But in the faith, since faith was my primary pathway, I wasn't exposed to recovery stories. There was always kind of like the 1 or 2 deacons in the church that in the African-American church, that you heard, that was Cousin Ray. Yeah, the Lord delivered him from crack cocaine 28 years ago. And that's it. That's all. And I'm like, how did Uncle Ray get delivered? What you mean? What is a delivered? So I never knew about any structure. Did he go to NA? I never knew any of those things. So that was, a barrier for me. So 14 and some months ago, when I went to intense treatment, I continued to work at my old rehab for years and years until I founded Divas Who Win. And that was another thing that really helped me on my pathway, was staying engaged in the work. And then it went to the next level. I would say my life elevated altogether 5 years ago this month when I became a CARES, because that was like the perfect mixture of what my soul longed for. I've been liberated and delivered really in many, many ways through my faith. And then I had an intense treatment program to wrap all that structure in a fire hose version of clinical understanding of this disease and the faith practice and living in a community with women for 6 months. And then the elevation came with CARES to meet all these individuals who had different belief system and different worldview, but were sober from 2 years to 32 years in my CARES class, and to hear the voice, to hear people from all walks of life have a voice to their recovery was just really helped give birth to the vision inside of me, which was I wanted to create a safe space for women. I knew enough, though working 10 years at that rehab, that women had secrets beyond our addictions. We had some stories. And if we didn't have a place to unload some of those stories, we might just repeat the story and then the addiction would be right back, in our lives. So I wanted to create, a sanctuary of sorts. And that's what Divas Who Win has been for me. So the barrier of being a mother with so many children, recovery afforded me the courage to get out of a toxic, abusive marriage a decade ago. I could have never done that without recovery. Made it right on through that period of my life, and I'm able to co-parent, with my ex-husband today. And, you know, my 6 children are grown, you know, my babies, 18 to 30, when 14 years ago, I couldn't see the light of day. So thank y'all for letting me share.
Thank you, Shonda. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. So we're going to hear next from Catherine, and then we're going to open up, and Jill's going to tell you how you can, if you're interested in asking a question or you want to talk to one of the panelists, she'll tell you all about that. So Catherine, let's hear from you.
Hi, guys. Wow, all of you are very strong and wonderful women, and I should have went first because all of you are fantastic, but I already know this. I am Catherine Lovern, and I'm the Executive Director of Living Proof Recovery in Rome. How I got here is a giant honor and amazing and wonderful. I am a person in long-term recovery. And what that means is it's been almost 5 years that I've had to use drugs or alcohol to feel something or feel nothing. From the time I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed as bipolar. So I'm also co-occurring. Mental health diagnosis was not something that you talked about in my family. Kind of similar to Shonda, I grew up in the faith community. My dad was a pastor of a small church in a small town with one red light. So that is what I knew. I mean, I knew that you didn't get your belly button pierced for sure, because your dad would rip that out. You didn't wear short skirts. You always wore dresses on Sundays. You sat there very quietly. You went to Sunday school. You were there in the morning. You were there at night. You didn't disrespect your parents. You know, things like that were the normal. But also, I realized that the normal was not talking about your problems. You didn't show your anger. You didn't show your sadness. I realized during my childhood, I came up with this thing, and I believe my first addiction was perfection. I wanted to be so perfect. I wanted to make the straight A's. I wanted to dress exactly how I should dress. I wanted to make sure that I did go to cheerleading and do competition and do all these things. And so, of course, just like most people, I didn't realize what was going on the inside, you know, and trying to strive and be addicted to that perfection, because all those expectations I set for myself that I thought my family expected of me, I failed at a lot of those things. I would get a B, or I'd miss an essay, or I wouldn't do a cheer stunt right, or something would happen, or my mom didn't have the money for something, or my parents got divorced and she married an alcoholic. So that was like totally, you know, whoa, she went from one extreme to the next. But I noticed also in her patterns throughout my life, she needed a man. So that's what I knew. I thought that you needed a man to survive. You needed that companionship to survive. You needed that. That's how women survived, right? So that's just what I knew. That was a core value that was instilled in me. And I thought that's the way it was, you know? So what did I do? I went for a man. It's always a man. And not only with that man did I start smoking pot and skipping school. And so there went the perfection right out the window, you know? And I started just for that man becoming who I thought he wanted me to be. And then of course that went on for a couple of years, and he went to prison. And so after that, I was like, okay, I can do this. So I'd already dropped out of school, went back to school, started college, met another man. That only lasted about, 6 months, and met another man, because you need a man. And that man also wanted to do drugs. So I got pregnant, and I thought, okay, here we go. We're back on the perfection roll, you know? So I stopped doing the drugs, stopped smoking cigarettes, didn't do any of that. I was like, this is gonna be wonderful, you know, baby's gonna fix everything. And so I get back into this fantasy world again in my mind, thinking, okay, I can become what he wants. I can be that Stepford wife. I can be that Stepford mom. I can be a good home mother, you know? So we knew something was wrong with the baby. We had an echo of his heart done, and I went into labor 2 days before my induction date, and the baby's heart couldn't take the stress of the birth. So in 2008, I gave birth to Jason Carter, and on October the 26th, and he also died that day. That was the beginning of a lot of things for me. I thought, you can still do this. You can, it's fine. Nothing ever happened. So we donated his body to science, and we never talked about it again. We took everything out of the rooms. They sent me home with Percocets, and there I was, because they made me feel better. Okay. They also made me feel nothing. I didn't have to process it. I didn't have to feel it. I didn't have to do any of that. And I knew that this man at the time, I thought nobody else could ever understand me. He's the man. I got to have a man. So we got married. And the Percocets continued. The Percocets turned to meth for a while, and well, methamphetamines, and then it went back to opiates, and just spun out of control. I got pregnant again in 2010 and delivered a healthy, wonderful baby boy in 2011, who is 10 now and wonderful. He is amazing, but I was just glad at that moment that he was living and breathing, right? I had been clean, trying to do everything right with him. And of course, the doctor sent me home with Percocets. Well, we know how that goes. Again, that was all she wrote. And I needed it. I needed it more because I didn't want to resent my child for being alive, because I should have been just so thankful. But there was another one that was dead that me and my ex-husband, I mean, we never even talked about his dad. We acted like it literally never happened. Because again, in my family, you don't talk about things like that. You don't talk about grief. You don't talk about sadness. You don't talk about anger, nothing. So we proceeded to raise my son, and my addiction got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. I received a job with a large mobility company, and I just continued to work. But the perfection came into play as well. My pill dealer was my manager, so that worked out, right? Also, my secondary pill dealer was my son's childcare worker. So why not? I continued on. We bought the house. We had the cars. We had the white picket fence. We had plenty of money. He worked night shift, so he didn't really know what's going on. I worked day shift, took care of my son. You know, we were just doing our own thing, went to Florida. You know, it was this life I always thought I wanted, that was all fake. All of it was fake. All of it was fantasy. And so we split up in 2015 and also divorced, lived with my grandmother, who helped raise me during the times where my mother wasn't there. Also that year, I got a call from my mother's doctor, and she had leukemia, but she also had an immune disorder at this point, so she couldn't have treatment. My mom died in 27 days from that date, you know. So as I'm taking care of my mother, I'm also taking her morphine patches, you know, and getting into that box they put in the freezer, because that's all I knew. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to hear the sounds. And all I knew from there is I really didn't care if I lived. And I mean, how could I not care? I had a wonderful son that lived, you know. After my mother died, I met a man, got on them date naps, girl, went straight for it again, because I couldn't live alone. I couldn't be alone. Not only did he hurt my son, but he hurt me too. It was a very abusive relationship. I had a broken nose and broken ribs. Several things, you know. The verbal abuse was even worse. He could have punched me any day of the week, but the words, you know, those burn into your memory. I felt worthless and hopeless. I'd been to jail a couple times here and there for, you know, drinking, or one time first at Walmart, I stole something, you know. But this time, when I could finally get this man to fall asleep after being awake for months and being held at gunpoint, I left. I left walking down the road, and I had a trash bag in one hand, and I had my baby in the other hand. And I thought, you know, I don't know what to do here. You know, I don't know how to grieve. I don't know how to cry. I don't know how to fight. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And so I just decided this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call my ex-husband and he's going to come get Lucas because I cannot take care of him. And his daddy loves him. So he come and picked him up, went and reported to probation. And of course, my drug screen is going to show that it is dirty. And I went to jail this time for a long time. And while I was in jail, I found out I was pregnant with this monsters of a man. And I thought, girl, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? Who are you even? Who are you? I didn't even know who I was. Was I his wife? Was I his mother? Was I, as a woman, who was I? I didn't even know who I was. I didn't even know who I wanted to be. I went for inpatient treatment because I was mandated. Of course, I still said I didn't have a problem. I ain't got a problem. I can handle this. So I'd heard sobriety off and on for years, but I had never heard recovery. I thought recovery is what you do when you have surgery. You know, you're going to recover afterwards. You're going to get better. You're going to go to physical therapy. You're going to get better, you know? So when I started learning more about this recovery lifestyle, sober is big, sober is giant, but recovery is that giant cloud and that comfort that surrounds who you are. It helps you find who you are in the midst of all that darkness. And I learned what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not, who I am, and to be bold in what I really believe. And also, you can change your core values. You can change them anytime you want to. You can change your core values. You can change your morals. You can change what you believe. You can change what you want. And as a woman, that is so powerful. I realized I didn't need a man. And if I ever had another man come in my life, it'd be because I wanted him. I wanted him. So for the first 2.5 years of my recovery, I was alone, but I wasn't alone. I found recovery support. I found a recovery family. I found my voice. I found my heart, you know? I found my heart. And I have my children. I have my babies, you know? A beautiful face, you know, that I got to tuck in every night in a sober environment, in a house I paid for, with a car I got from suffering and struggling and riding a bus, you know? Like, those things for a woman are monumental. And after that moment, I did meet a man. But you know what? My picker was no longer broken. And now we are married and we have another child, and he is amazing. And he's not there because I need him like that. Not like that broken girl did. He's there because I want him there, and he wants to be there. And he understands me as an individual, independent, strong female that loves my children and loves my family. And I mean, God is amazing. Jesus Christ is my King, and he is the pathway that I will choose over and over and over and over. And he just continues to bless me. It's not all sunshines and cupcakes and rainbows and kittens, you know. You get on that pink cloud for a while, but life happens. But when you have recovery and you have support and you have your family, you can do anything. Jesus will rise up on that white horse with that sword and cut them down. You know, it's just, this is the most beautiful and life-changing thing that I've ever done in my life. I feel like I've learned more in recovery than I have my whole 30-something years of living, ever, you know? We get to learn about honesty and integrity and kindness and love. And you get to see different aspects and different perspectives, and you get to have an openness that you never thought was possible. And I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful. And then you get hooked up with a recovery community organization that's fabulous and watch it from ground to where it is now and end up being the director. What? Who would have thought I was going to be that? Ever. God did. He knew. He knew. I really appreciate all of you listening to what I had to say. I really do. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Wow. What a story there. My goodness. So Jill, do you want to explain to everybody how you want to proceed? or Jamie or somebody?
Sure. So what we're gonna do is, instead of having a bunch of people unmute and sound issues and all that, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that for any of the panelists,
Over.
shoot it in the chat, and I will relay that information to our panelists. I mean, you guys are all amazing. Those were amazing stories. I was, it's the last one of the day and the best. You guys did great.
Anything? No, not yet.
I don't see any questions coming in right now.
So why don't we maybe can ask each of the ladies to tell a little something about about their RCO. That I think they're all working at RCO, so they might just mention.
Yeah, they're all directors of RCOs.
Right. All directors. You're exactly right. They might mention one thing, perhaps that's something that they've done for maybe a story for, you know, somebody that walked in, some woman that walked in and needed some support. How about something like that? We got about what, 14 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Jump in, y'all.
So I'll go.
I'm Terusa. Who?
Okay.
So one of the things I think since COVID-19 is our partners with Middle Flint Behavior Health. It was Phoenix Center Behavior Health, and with the Women Treatment Recovery inpatient portion of the facility. And they, since COVID, they were getting, of course, sometimes, you know, as women in facilities, you get supervised visitations with your children. And of course, because of COVID, that had to cease and desist. And so you have with women in a treatment center who was, you know, putting their best foot forward, seeking recovery and doing what they need to do. And I mean, how devastating could that be? Now you can no longer begin to have these visitations with your children. And in the facility where they were at was not equipped, or at least maybe it wasn't in the policies, I'm not sure, but they reached out to us and we were able, every Wednesday they would come here and they would do Zoom visitations with their babies and with their loved ones. And they were just sitting here and you just hear them and you're just able to see their children or their parents or whoever it is that they needed to see at that time while we was being cautious through COVID. But let me just say this, because as a director, which is a byproduct of recovery, of course, but as a director, I want to say this, what's most empowering to me right now is to be, my peers is my staff, right? So I get to work with 7 other individuals closely, and we get to sharpen one another every day and empower each other every day. And so whereas they're directly working with the peers in the community, I'm directly working with my peers. I call them my peers now, my peer team, my team members, and we get to sharpen each other every day. Now, I mean, it sounds like fun, but you know, we're in recovery. And some days it could be challenging, but just to see the development, to see the empowerment, to see the strengthening, to see somebody go from taking a risk, who was sleeping on the sofa of somebody else's house, who was one of my employees, to take a risk, to get her own house, to go ahead and get her car, and to do those things so that then we could continue to help the community. So it's beautiful to be able to operate in the vision of liberating other recovery champions in rural Georgia.
Thank you, Terusa. Shonda, did you want to share?
So yeah, okay, so we received a phone call about a month or so ago from the mayor. Our mayor used to be a middle school teacher here from years and years back. And all he said was, he emailed me one sentence: I have this lady, I think she would benefit from your services. So we reached out, called her, you know, a couple of times, and a month or so passed. And so my story is going back to mission and a powerful community of women. So eventually the peer comes and she shares, and she's just really struggling in a lot of ways. And she returns several times. And the last time that she came, she's suffering a little bit from some paranoia, but she also says that the car that pulled up in the parking lot is acquainted with this situation she's in with the man. And so I immediately jumped to the part of the mission that says we create a safe space. So now I'm bucking up, like, who coming through this parking lot? So the pregnant young lady comes on in, and I'm still kind of in that posture. And I'm, director, founder, but I'm still in that posture because I don't know what's getting ready to happen. And I first had the relationship with the other young lady. But I decide, okay, Shonda, first of all, be a 50-year-old woman. Secondly, follow the mission. So I got ready to tour this girl just like anyone else, but I rested on the part because our mission's on the wall. And I just said, we create a safe space. And I let it linger there because I needed to hear that. I needed to make sure everyone was safe. And I needed her to know, it's about safety and community as women here. But long story short, everything went fine. I let all the puff out of my sail, and she toured with our peer coaches. Everything was great. But that young lady showed up on our virtual meeting that night. And then she came back again. She was sent by family treatment court. Her instructor said, you need to just go sit at the divas. I don't care if they're not having a meeting. You just need that environment. And so to watch her today and to find out, she's got a whole lot of children, and to just be of service, you know what I mean? No, we couldn't give her a car. We couldn't offer a housing voucher, any of that, but just to know the circumstances and just the uniqueness of RCOs, not just divas, but any RCO, woman come off the street and find immediate support, walk her through some really intense situations. And that's for everybody. You know what I mean? I didn't have to pick and choose that day. Here was a woman that needed support, and we were able to do that and create, 2 new relationships. So my hat's off just to all the RCOs represented here, because the peers, just like you all that we serve, have never heard of an RCO before. They don't even know what we are until they engage.
Yeah. One of the things that I heard in early recovery is that when women recover, families recover.
That's right.
And I have found that to be the case in terms of my story and so many other women that I have, supported or known throughout the years. When women recover, families recover.
We did get one question, just real quick. Alexis asked, do you prefer sharing your story in spaces that are exclusive to women? Does anyone want to answer that?
I can.
Go ahead.
For me, it's not a preference. I don't really have a preference. I feel like everything that I have to say is also valid to men, because when I hear a man share their story, something I have gained in recovery is openness. You want to see that other person's perspective. So just like that book is, what is it? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus, right? Okay, it's kind of like that in recovery because they have their own struggles as well. I believe we have to have a good support network as women because we do have other struggles that are different. But it's good for us to share all of it out in the open because I want to take some of that back and say, okay, well, maybe that's what my husband's going through. My husband's in recovery, or they can take that back and say, maybe that's what my wife's going through. In any situation, I feel like if you're in recovery, we can relate. There is some relatability there, and every story has power and purpose.
Thanks, Catherine. We've got about, 5 more minutes to hear from somebody?
Jen go. Jen, can you talk about your tattoo? I think that's an awesome thing that you guys came up with, y'all doing with your tattoo parlor.
Oh,
Sure.
thanks, Teresa. That's new one. Okay, I need to hear that too.
So we have an employee at our RCO that is a tattoo artist. He did that as his profession before he was in recovery, and it's kind of a twofold thing for us because he felt like he did some disreputable things because he knew how to tattoo. He would trade them for drugs, or he would do whatever. And so when he got into recovery, he didn't want to do that anymore because it made him feel some type of way to tattoo people. And when he started working at the RCO, we started bouncing ideas around about, you know, how sometimes people get these tattoos that they don't want when they get into recovery. You know, I've seen all kinds of tattoos, you know, gang related, pot leaves, you know, all these things. And so we decided that we were going to provide a space for him to be able to help those people and cover up those tattoos that they didn't want anymore. And I think he's done several of them, you know, hate related. Like he covered up a rebel flag on someone because she was like, I don't know why I got this. I don't feel like this, you know. He's gotten, you know, self-harm scars because part of our recovery is, you know, maybe we don't want to harm ourselves anymore. We don't want track marks showing, you know, I don't want just all this stuff written on my body. So it's pretty neat. And if anybody's interested in it, there's on our website, on Reboot Jackson's website, we have a little link where you can fill out an application if you know anybody that might need that service that doesn't mind driving to Jefferson, Georgia. So we're taking off with that. We'll see where it goes, but I think it's really awesome that he's able to make amends to himself and to other people by doing that. So
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. And then there was a question about, do you mind sharing, or do you have a preference to share your story with women as opposed to men, or you prefer not to share with men? Can somebody else maybe answer that one? Catherine did. Anybody else have a feeling about that?
I prefer to share with women just for the connection, because I'm looking for the woman in the back of the room that wants to talk. You know what I mean? So it's my preference. However, I also enjoy, like I'm going, I don't know, somewhere Thursday, and the man that invited me said that most of the guys here are guys who are Caucasian, middle-aged men of some affluence that would be your typical frequenter of strip clubs and sex parties, you know, things of that nature. And he just wants them to hear the message that comes with our mission. So I'll freely share with men, but I'm in my zone. I'll pick a group of women really any day. I mean, I have 5 sons, so I mean, I don't discriminate against men, but if we want to talk about I want to do it in a room full of women.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Shonda. Jewel, I turn this back over to you. We've got about a minute left, or 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we can wrap up a little bit early because the virtual all recovery meeting is starting at 7. So I'll let everyone hop on there. But thank you so much, Karen. Thank you, Jamie, for helping me host this. Thanks for all of our panelists. It's so great to see you all and hear your stories. Oh, wait. I'm supposed to copy and paste this thing about a about a survey. Give me 1 second. I totally forgot about that. My bad. Here we go.
I want to thank everybody. I mean, I really enjoyed this experience. I kind of thought I would. For much of my life, I remember starting a couple of women's meetings, and I feel real comfortable. I can answer that question myself, you know, but about talking to women, I mean, that just seems to be my passion, but I know that men need to hear our story too. And so, you know, I don't have any problem sharing that with them either. So, yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're good. All right. See you guys in the all recovery meeting.
All right. Thank y'all. Be safe, everyone.